Hello everybody, Thrash Till Death here. Well, I was going to do a review of Burning Fortune by Cauldron today, but I just found out today that Turisas, the Finnish folk symphonic metal band, have put up their whole new album, Stand Up and Fight, on the internet for free streaming. Generally, I'm not a big fan of the sort of something for nothing downloading culture of music these days, but you know, if a band's putting one of their albums up for streaming, like legally with their permission, you know, what the hell, I'm not made of stone or money for that matter, so I just went ahead and had a listen to it. Turisas, this is their third album that they're on now, although you probably just know them as that band who did that cover of that song by Boney M. Stand Up and Fight is one of the most incredibly orchestrated albums that you're likely to hear this year or any other year. These guys are viable to give Nightwish or Equilibrium a sort of run for their money as one of the most ludicrously sort of bombastic over-the-top bands in the world. And you know, symphonic metal it's always been sort of a sticking point for me. It's a genre I like more in principle than in practice a lot of the time. A lot of bands, I like the idea of featuring a philharmonic orchestra behind the metal band, and it has worked several times in practice, like Metallica's S&M album for instance. But a lot of the time, a lot of bands who do this will sort of rely on the orchestra to provide all the grandeur and emotion behind their music, and sort of the actual metal element of the symphonic metal gets swept to one side. A lot of these bands will just sort of play generic power chords in just standard chug-chug rhythms. Nightwish and Dimmu Borgir in particular are sort of guilty for this. And while these sort of songs are epic in a way, it's that sort of generic, bland movie trailer sort of style of epic where anything can be made impressive if you just put a massive choir behind it, but that doesn't really mean it has substance. These songs don't necessarily have the sort of depth and complexity to them to match the sort of grandeur that you're providing them with all the strings and everything. And Turisas are guilty of that to a very limited extent. A lot of their riffs are relatively sort of ordinary, sort of uninspired, just chug-chug, mid-paced sort of thing. But equally, once you sort of get past the fact that the songwriting isn't really breaking any new ground, Stand Up and Fight in every other area is pretty much an ideal symphonic metal album, folk metal album. It's only 46 minutes long, I believe, which is quite short for something that's setting out to be so epic. But it's probably just as well, because Turisas essentially only have two modes, which is like grand, fist-pumping, passionate war march songs and sort of goofy, silly Boney M covering mode. And, you know, 45 minutes, 46 minutes is probably the ideal length for an album like that, especially when you compare it to the likes of Equilibrium's Saga's album, which at 80 minutes feels like a chore to get through in the last half hour. So Turisas are probably quite astute in doing that. And the songs are just generally a lot of fun, and very, very tight, very well played. You do get the impression that even in the album's most somber moments, Turisas aren't taking themselves entirely seriously. Not that that's a stretch to believe of a band who sort of dress up in furs and paint themselves red and do all this sort of posturing with fucking swords and medieval weapons and stuff. They're just sort of having fun with all these sort of ye olde pirate and Viking references and stuff. The singer is excellent. That's something I sort of singled out about this album, is that he doesn't do this sort of death rasp thing that a lot of folk metal bands do, and I think to their detriment, certainly in terms of bands like Elevated or Equilibrium. It doesn't really match the sort of grand style of music. And while he has a very nice singing voice, very clear, clean projection, he also sounds like this sort of swarthy sort of leader of this band of warriors that you might expect to be helming an album like this, and it just sounds authentic, you know? And of course all the orchestral elements are all there, the swelling strings, the big fuck-off choirs in the background, and it's all just incredibly impressive and bombastic, and it's just generally great fun. The album does have one or two sort of somber moments, especially towards the end, the song The Bosphorus Freezes Over, the very last track in particular, is surprisingly elegiac for an album that's otherwise so pretty damn goofy. But, you know, it's all just sort of part of the sort of drama and the general sense of Viking movie epicness. Sort of as a more melodic counterpoint to Amon Amarth, you might say. So, Turisas, Stand Up and Fight, definitely one I recommend you go and seek out if you're a fan of symphonic metal at all. I still insist that essentially the only band who has ever really combined symphonic elements with metal and done it properly, effectively, the way it should be done is Balsagoth. But Turisas, as it stands, are probably among the best practitioners of this style going today, and they're certainly among the most epic and impressive and passionate. And they just sound like the genuine article. So if you're a fan of symphonic metal at all, definitely give this one a listen, especially while it's up for free, streaming for free. I'll include the link in the description. Yeah, you owe it to yourself to listen to it. It's only up until the 1st of March, I should point out, so you've only got 4 days now. But as long as that's up for free, you definitely owe it to yourself to check this one out. So Turisas, Stand Up and Fight, absolutely loved it. And yeah, I'll do Cauldron Burning Fortune next week. I'm looking forward to that one as well. So yeah, until then, I am Thrash Till Death, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.